This is the Limitless Leadership Lounge, where Coach and John learn along with you from some of the world's most decorated leaders. Recently promoted, let's sharpen the saw together.
You will be inspired by today's conversation on the Limitless Leadership Lounge. I'm John Goehring, joined today by Coach Jim Johnson, and I'm really excited to welcome in our guest. And a reminder to you, if this is your first time here at the Limitless Leadership Lounge, sit back and relax. Let us know what you think about the show when you're done. If you've been here a while and you haven't yet subscribed up on YouTube or left us a review to help us reach other young and emerging leaders like yourself, that would be very helpful to the show. So we would appreciate if you would do that. So without further ado, Coach, let's introduce Diana and dive into today's inspiring conversation.
I had the pleasure to talk to Diana, and she's got quite a story, and we're really looking forward to have her. Diana Fritz is a dynamic executive leader, cancer thriver, and passionate advocate for authenticity, resilience, and positive impact. With over 25 years of experience spanning executive leadership, operations, human resources, business planning, and technology, Diana has built a reputation for fostering teamwork, driving organizational health, and leading with influence, not just a title. A member of the Maxwell Leadership Executive Program, a corporate facilitator, and a certified DISC consultant, Diana is dedicated to empowering individuals and organizations through open, engaging, and value-driven leadership. Her mission is to create a meaningful impact, ensure every person she encounters feels valued. Beyond her professional achievements, Diana is a devoted wife and mother and a committed volunteer. She thrives on sharing insights about leadership, resilience, and navigating challenges with authenticity. And I've been reading, I'm about a third of a way from her book called The Uniquely Imperfect, Uniquely Qualified. And I'll tell you, I've been hanging on every word. The book is amazing. I'm really looking forward to finishing it. So without further ado, Diana Fritz, welcome to the Limitless Leadership Lounge.
Thank you, Coach Jim and John. It's great to be here with you.
Awesome. So Diana, in reading your book, and I have some background at doing the research, I'm curious because you talk about your grandmother, the impact she made on you. So I'm curious if we go back, tell us a little bit about your grandmother and what you learned from her.
She was a lovely lady. I think when I think about her, I think of if there's a person in my life that was my view of who Jesus was on earth, that was her. She could laugh at anything. I just did a devotional this morning on choosing joy, and she knew how to choose joy, even when, the bad things were happening or people weren't agreeing or whatever it may be. She saw the best in people. She could always laugh and smile, and she just challenged me to be better. And I can remember being at her funeral and standing by her casket and just holding her hand, and somebody walked up to me and said, "Diana, you've got her smile." And that I'd never heard that before, but it became a pattern for me to think about whenever I lose somebody I love, what about them do I want to make sure I carry on and represent their legacy? And so for my grandma, got to carry on her smile because she taught me how to smile and to laugh and to choose joy.
Wow.
And I got to ask you one more question about your childhood, and then I'll let John and Renuma come in here because I'm a basketball coach. So I got to ask about your first basketball coach, Jack Fox. Can you tell us a little bit about him and what you learned from him?
Absolutely. Coach Fox he's still alive today. So I consider it an honor to get to visit him when I go to Pennsylvania. I live in Florida now, so I am thankful I'm not happy to not be up north in the seasons of January through like April. I'm thankful I'm in Florida. But Coach Fox was my first basketball coach, honestly, and he taught so many lessons in regards to not just basketball, but pushed us all to be accountable to each other and to speak to each other when there was an issue and not to dance around the issue and go to him. Also focused a lot on our mental capacity, like our mental toughness. And I can remember so many times, right? He would challenge that, or he would say, "Diana, you showed like mental toughness, right? You got knocked down and you got back up and you kept going." I think he taught me some of the most valuable lessons just in terms of resilience and what it meant to be on a team, because a team is not about me. It's about the team working together and winning. And I love those lessons that he taught me. And I sent him a note before I wrote the book, which he's got a chapter in a sense in the book, but I was traveling for work and going into different areas to do consulting and training. And I can tell quickly when people in a work environment have never played on a true team because it's all about them. It's all
Yeah.
about who moved my cheese. And it's not they just miss the whole bigger picture concept. And so I paused after that trip and I just wrote him a note and I was like, I just want you to know those lessons you taught around teamwork and accountability have helped me throughout my whole life. It wasn't just about those years I spent with you in high school. It was a much bigger picture and opportunity of impact.
Diana, sorry that I joined late. I'm in Bangladesh and there were so many things happening. But I'm curious to know because often we hear for female leaders that you have to be very strong and you have to act manly. And the quality of female leaders often could be empathy, being caring about others. So what are your takes on this as female leaders? Do we have to act like macho, show power, or use that skill of our empathy for others more when we are leading?
That's an interesting topic. I can remember over the years people going, "Women need to stick together." I'm just my thought is we are all have unique talents and skills, and that's where our opportunity is to lead. It doesn't matter if I'm a male or a female, right? I have unique
Mhm.
skills and talents, and I've been blessed with them, and I need to use them. And for me, my first role as an executive, I was about 15 years younger than the rest of around the table, and I was the only female. And I learned a lot from them, but I also learned that my respect from the company was earned over time, and my ability to just be calm and a calming presence brought a
Mhm.
lot of people to want to come talk to me first because I didn't overreact. I stayed calm. Empathy ties in well there too, right? Just that, but that's like a skill set I have. And to use your skill sets because that's how God's enabled you and qualified you to lead is by the gifts and talents you have.
That's right. Yeah, Diana, tell us you've overcome a lot of challenges and you currently face a lot of challenges in your life. So tell us, especially your rare form of cancer, how that has impacted your leadership journey.
Yeah, so I was diagnosed with a rare form of cancer 12 years ago this month, or it was 12 years ago this time frame. And I can remember first finding out I was new to being a single mom. So I had just separated from the boys' dad to have that healthy environment for them. I was an executive. I was navigating through a lot of different things, and that news hits you. And at first, right, you get knocked down. And then I sat there and went, you know what? I've gone through all these lessons in life, right? It's going to be okay. And there is a reason why I'm going to be navigating through these challenges. I'm going to go to places, hospitals, doctors, nurses, I'm going to meet people I never would have met otherwise. So, what is the opportunity in that? Who does God need me to talk to or to be a part of their lives? And it was a good shift and a reminder for me that yes, that was not what I wanted to hear the year I turned 40, 30 days into the year, but that's okay, right? We can still get through it and we can still navigate it. And I was determined that cancer was not going to define me. It's refined me. It's made me better, but it hasn't defined like who I am. And that's really been an element, I think, of leading that has helped me is in choosing to be authentic and real about my story and where I'm at. The hardest person for me to lead is me. And then after that, probably my children. And then we go to the people around us at work. So I needed to lead myself through that journey and how I was going to respond. And by being able to still choose positive, choose to keep going, choose to look for ways that I could help add value to others within the doctor's offices or the hospitals or the cancer walls, gave me the opportunity to lead myself well, but also opens the door for people to ask me questions, right? How are you doing this, right? How are you able to still smile and lead through this? And then that opens the door for me to help others. Just a different way to lead, not what I was expecting, but a different way to test my leadership ability.
And
Diana, I got to give a little plug again for your book as I'm reading it right now. And it's amazing because when you started your basketball career in college, you ended up having two ACL tears, which blows my mind. And the fact that that ends up being a minor challenge compared to what you've had with the cancer is truly amazing. But I'm going to turn because I know your faith, but two books you mentioned. One of them is my all-time favorite book, and another one I've read and is very powerful as well. So I'm curious if you can talk a little bit about The Seven Habits from Dr. DeCovey, which is one of my all-time favorite books, and then another very powerful book, The Search of Meaning by Viktor Frankl. Tell us a little bit about that, because they're two powerful books that I highly recommend young leaders read. But give us a little bit of what impacted you on those two.
It's interesting. I was talking to somebody the other day, and they're like, Diana, I'm impressed that at your age you read Viktor Frankl's A Man's Search for Meaning, because I probably was like 17 when I read the book. I said, I didn't pick to read it. I had to read it for my college literature class. So I just want to, don't give me too much credit for reading it. And both of them actually were assigned as a part of that. But those two books go really well together because the first habit in Covey's book is being proactive. And that was coined by Viktor Frankl, the author of A Man's Search for Meaning. And I was reading both of those books around the time frame of that disappointment of tearing my ACL. And that pretty much ends your season. And I graduated from high school a year early at 16 so I could play college basketball. So I had to pause a little bit because all of that beautiful logic I used with sarcasm to get to college, right, that didn't work out too well. However, the timing of reading those books reminded me that concept of being proactive is that I respond versus react. And that was an important lesson, right, in terms of navigating the ACL injury. And then Viktor Frankl tells his story about being in a Nazi prison camp and being beaten and starved, and he still chose his response and how he responded to the prison guards, the same people that beat him and starved him. And I can remember I have notes from my journals because I'm a journaler from back then. And if he can still choose positive, then my goodness, so can I. And I think that those concepts have stayed with me throughout my life. We all have moments where we get knocked down, but nobody can take away our freedom to choose how we respond. We still get to pick that. And there's so many people today that are the victim and allowing that to be an excuse versus I still get to choose. I have a role to play.
Well said.
and yeah. And there is this, I always loved the quote from Rumi whenever I'm facing some tough time, that God sometimes breaks you into pieces so that the lights can go through you.
Mm.
And I think that light went through you, and now you are shedding your light on so many people from your experiences. So thank you so much for sharing your story with the world and through your books. And on a different note, sometime I found out that the vulnerability, I also go and train in different corporate setting or universities. And when I'm vulnerable, sometimes people tend to pay more attention and they can connect with you. So, as a leader, what are the roles? How powerful is being vulnerable if I want to influence others in any setting?
It's been powerful for me for determining whether or not I respect some of the different leaders that I've worked with over the years. And when they can be vulnerable and real and admit that they made a mistake or that wasn't the right choice, or in retrospect, I needed to do this the
Mm,
next time, I respect them so much more
Mm.
because, and I think that's a challenge with some of our next generation of leaders. They don't see that same type of humility and
mm,
authentic leading and admitting mistakes from some of the leaders that are all over the news today. And I think that's
Right.
part of our challenge we have today. And knowing what has been meaningful and impactful to me, to who I want to lead, then I want to make sure I'm doing the same thing with my children. I mess up and I will sit down and look at them and
Mm,
say, you know what? I was wrong in how I handled that. I apologize. This is how I need to do it the next time.
right. Mm,
With interacting, I'm actually right now sitting at a school because a part of what I'm doing right now is filling a gap as an interim executive director of a school. I'm not always going to get it right with those kids either, but I need to be able to be authentic and real. And one way I get to do that, and I say get to, right? Because it's a word choice. If I say have to, then
mm,
that means I'm not being
mm,
proactive. I get to, right? Spend time with them. Kids ask me the best questions, right? I cannot go anywhere where a child is not going to stare and look at me. And so, what am I going to do with that? Am I going to say, hi, how are you? Do you have a question? Or am I going to be grumpy and mean to them? I love when they ask me questions. I have gotten asked so many questions about my unique look that I just go, I've got to write a book about that, right? Kids are great. They're curious. But
right.
I'm probably getting a little sidetracked on your question. Did I answer your
No,
question?
yeah, yeah, perfectly. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Diana, how about you talked about self leadership? That's one of the more overlooked leadership styles that we have, or the importance of self leadership, I feel, is overlooked anyway. What are some of the ways that you lead yourself, and how would you recommend others develop that self leadership plan, especially when facing challenges?
No, and I was writing like a devotional or reflection on this the other day. I think it is so important that whether I'm a teenager, older, that I understand what's important to me about my foundation and that I have a strong foundation to go back to. And what are, in that I look to what are the values that I want to uphold. That long intro Coach Jim did for me, but he hit on some things, right? I want to value all people and I want to add value to them. Like those are things that are just core and important to me and that guide me. And I have some verses that I like to stick to. And then I have a practice like every day where I'm going to get up 5 a.m. Saturday, I may go till 6, but I'm going to spend time reflecting on how I did the prior day, who I strive to add value to that day, and did I do it, right? And just make sure that I'm always reviewing and reflecting on how I did and how I'm going to get better and grow. And then also include other people when I need to, because I'm not, if you're looking at me, I have an obvious blind spot. We all have a blind spot. Not everybody's are as obvious as mine, but making sure that I'm pulling other people in to make sure that I don't have a blind spot in how I'm leading myself.
Mhm.
Because if I can't lead myself, I can't lead others well. I can't lead my kids. I can't lead people, teams. Like I can't do it.
True. Very true.
Excellent. Well done. Diana, you brought up journaling, and it's something that if I was to reflect on my life, I journal quite a bit now, but did not do it when I was younger. And we're trying to help younger emerging leaders. Tell us about your journaling and why you would recommend to young people to start journaling much earlier than I did.
I first started journaling when I was a kid, and that journal is really funny because it's like my mom made pancakes. It's my favorite. Just kind of those things, which, okay, that's funny to go back and look at, but not necessarily the reflective type of journaling I do now. I think it's really helpful for you to do it because it holds you, gives you reflection time. So you don't just go through the motions, right? You spend time and you go back and reflect. I also use it as a way to think about what I'm thankful for the prior day. Are there any areas I need to ask for forgiveness from the prior day? So that's like an accountability option. I also I want to intentionally add value to somebody every day. And so I write that down in the morning and then I check myself, right? Did I do it? Sometimes I end up having a list of 5 things to do before the end of the week, but it's just a great way to stay true to yourself and to your foundation and to make sure that you're challenging yourself to grow. And then you may ask, okay, if I start journaling now, what am I going to do with all these journals, right? 10 years from now. They were really helpful for me in writing my book because I could
Mm.
just go pull back the order and I could go back and remember and look. And it reminded me of some things that I had forgotten about, right? In terms of how God had worked or how a person had showed up in my life, right? It's easy to forget, right? Because we are just caught in the moment of what we're scrolling through social media or things like that. And the written like word is great for you to go back and just reflect and just see how far you've come, or somebody that showed up that you forgot about, and just reach out and thank them, right? It's
Yeah.
been powerful for me.
Yeah.
And self-reflection is so important. And in this era, we often see that the devices and everything that is going around, we hardly take that pause to self-reflect. And I'm observing my niece, my nephew, and all the younger people, that it is always that I cannot be bored, that I have always have to be occupied. And that often scares me what kind of future we are going to create for them, where they're not going to think, because they're so much into that those artificial environment, and they
Yeah.
need that. So you are in a school setting and there is a culture, and we often try to create a culture. What are the things that you think or you can suggest that we can do to help the future generation on these areas to pause a little bit? And then you talked about gratitude. It is also such an important factor. Like, we need to be grateful for
Yeah.
what we have, but we forget about those things. So, for the school setting, and because I'm also building a school and I work with young people,
Okay.
some advices on how do we help or guide the younger generation on these areas.
It's with schools, and I, whether it's public school or Christian school where I'm at, they're often not able to use their phones once they walk into the
Mm,
walls, can't
right.
use their phones. And it's interesting to have dialogue with them. Like, I wish I could. And what would you use it for? Your classmates are right beside you, right?
Mm,
You get to talk to people, right? What do you need it for? And it just becomes like an attachment to them. I
Mm.
do find it interesting. I have a group of girls that I meet with weekly, so a small group, and I start the group with something they're thankful for. And the first few weeks, it was just the flippant things, right? My mom, my parents. And so then eventually I was like, okay, we're not saying that anymore. Like, I get you're thankful for them. I want you to think about something that happened in the last 24 hours that you're thankful for. And it can't be something you say every week. It's hard for them.
right.
And because you're just programmed, you just keep going, and you miss like those moments that happen.
Mm,
So that's been a part of my practice of not just accepting the routine. I'm thankful for my mom, right? I'm not okay with
mm,
that. What does your mom do? And trying to make them think a little more. And it's uncomfortable for them. I would just say that.
right.
I can tell it's uncomfortable. The other thing is I try to work with I have the opportunity to do chapel once a week as well. And to just take time to be quiet in that setting. So just take a minute, right? And pause and think. Or I'll put up a picture. I love the sunrise. I love to go walk across the street to the beach at dawn and just sit there. But I'll take
Mm,
videos of that some mornings, and then I'll play it up on the screen and just sit there and be quiet and listen. Because if we're constantly scrolling and constantly on devices or whatever it may be, we never get to be true to our hearts and to take time to pause and figure out who we are. Like, we lose who we really are
mm,
when we're
Yeah.
not taking that time.
Yeah,
so
there's so
true.
much research about the power of gratitude too and slowing down. Some young and emerging leaders might say, though, I'm such a high achieving person and so driven and just don't have time to slow down and do all of those things that people say you should do, like meditate and pray and do gratitude and journal. What would you say to those leaders who are achieving a lot of things and are moving very fast in life, but are neglecting those important things that you talk about?
I kind of do this with my kids too. I would ask them to write down for a week, like, where do you spend all your time? And just write it down. Write all the areas that you spend your time. And then let's talk after that week and see what you think about the use of your time and where you're spending it. I'm guilty of that too, right? I log down my time. There's times I get lost, right? And looking at something, and I could have read a book for 30 minutes instead. I could have exercised. I could have worked out and listened to something that was good for my head and my heart and my soul, right? Versus listening to, I don't know, something that's pointless and meaningless. But unless you're willing to just be accountable and just track your time for a week, I think you do have time, right? It's just a perspective of how you want to use it.
Priorities, right? True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Diana, I know you're DISC certified, so can you tell us a little bit about, for our young emerging leaders that some may not have heard of DISC, and tell us a little bit about it and how you use it to help your clients?
Yeah. Happy to. So I was introduced to DISC, goodness, many years ago, but it was really meaningful to me as I was a young executive because the DISC profile, like the D stands for more of that dominant personality, like quick decisions, rapid, not necessarily most engaging personality. The I is interactive, so they are the more engaging and talkative personality, very social. The S is more steady. They're the consistent one, but they're often the quiet behind the scenes type one. And then the C is more compliant and conscientious. So maybe into more data and facts following the rules. I am an S. I'm very steady and calm. I'm also a middle child, right? I want everybody to get along. I want to be the peacemaker. When I was early in my executive career, there was multiple D personalities on the leadership team with me, and I struggled with them at some level, right? They would call me and say, Diana, why did you do X? And I would start to defend instead of asking them the next question, help me understand more. And so when I had my DISC assessment at that level and a 360 assessment at the same time from a consultant, he said, Diana, you're letting them win. Just ask them the next question. Don't defend. You did the right thing. And without me like thinking about that and challenging me through on how I use that, I wouldn't get, right, that those D's, I'm opposite them on the DISC profile, which means that our blind spots complement each other. So they can be my best partner in figuring out how I lead better and how I align with people better. And so to me, it's just been really meaningful in helping me as a leader, but also helping teams, right? I know coach, right? How the teams figure out how we connect and work well together. We all have different ways that we communicate. And with the DISC profile and workshop has just been really meaningful for me to help teams figure out, hey, we're all different. Let's appreciate about that about each other. Not everybody communicates like me, so I need to adapt sometimes. My way is not always the right way. But without that context, there's a lot of people, families, teams, or they just have things that they can't get over because they don't have that appreciation for each other.
So true. And I am observing this in my team. I run a nonprofit, and just today I was talking to one of the team members because one of them is I, and then there is D, and then there is C, who is very compliant. He can work, but he's not going to ask you questions or do anything. So some of the team members would say that, oh, the C person, they're not productive enough. But I know that in a team, we need all these four personalities.
Yeah.
If we are all star players, then it's not going to work. And I know in the basketball field, both coach and you might have that experience. That do we really need all the star players to shine in our games? Definitely not. So from your point of view, I was wondering that do you have any tips to make these teams work effectively and thrive, or any stories that you would like to share that you have experienced in basketball court or any of your
Yeah.
leading roles?
No, it's been when I get to do a disc workshop with with teams, I love to do it across like a whole company because you're not going to pull everybody in the same meeting, but doing it in groups of 15 or 20 and you start to see the lights go off as you're going through it. And I work to be really transparent about stories that I weave in, right? About what I've learned and how it's helped me. And because being real, right, is really helpful
Right.
for them to see, okay, it's okay. I also to have people spend time working with a pair or a person beside them to reflect, right, on their disc report and what they learned, because that's always much more comfortable to do it like in a smaller setting and then come back
Mm,
and figure it out. What I've found really helpful and rewarding is when people come back to me and say, you know what, Diane, I still use it and it is helping me, particularly the D personalities. Like they get so frustrated with people. Like, why do they want to talk to me so much? Why don't they just move on? Why? And they have all that frustration and they're like, okay, but I get it. I need to adjust some. Not everybody is like me and I need to adjust. And so I think but it's also, it's not a one-time event to do something like that, to use desk. It's like an ongoing reminder of how it works and
mm,
how it applies. And I think that's probably often something that's missed. It's done once. We have to remember to bring it into play and talk about it over time, particularly when there's tension, is to go,
mm,
okay, well, why is there tension, right? And how do we figure this out together? And that's just like anything, right? With Coach Jim and coaching, right? You may coach, you may have go over the in some new plays but you have to keep going over the plays like at every practice. It's not like a one and done event. And that's very similar when you're working on a team working well together with communication or whatever
mm.
the topic may be. It's not a one-time event. It's an ongoing practice to continue
Right.
to thrive and grow together.
Oh yeah, it
So
sure
true.
is. That's coach always talks about. You're the chief reminding officer, right?
Yeah.
Coach, to
Yeah.
borrow your phrase there, how important it is to continue that communication. Now, Diana, I have one more question for you, and it's the one I've really been curious to ask you most of all, is how important your faith is to you, and how you going through something like this rare form of cancer has changed your perspective about life, and how important is it for you to have something like faith to hold on to throughout this time?
Yeah. We talked about my grandmother at the beginning, right? Who's my example of faith. It's been that many people look at me and I have the opportunity to speak and share something about my story. And I work to look for ways to help others with my story because my adversity uniquely qualifies me to help somebody else. But they're like, but Diana, most patients wouldn't do this. Like they would be hiding or they would be depressed. And you must have a foundation. And I'm like, absolutely. I have a foundation of faith and trusting that God is with me and he's by my side. And I will have multiple people challenge and say, Diana, you're a good person. Why does this happen to you? And I appreciate that, but I'm not always a good person. We always make mistakes, but God never promised that life would be easy. He said that all things work together for good to those who love him and work according to his purpose. And I can look back over my journey, and there are so many ways that God has worked for good in my story, despite the scars. So having that strong foundation of faith helps me to go, okay, Jesus shined through his scars, right? He showed the scars on his hands, and I can choose to let him shine through my scar and I can still smile, or I can choose to be bitter. And it is much more fun to smile
Mm,
and let them shine through my scars. And
that's
I
right.
couldn't do it if I didn't have faith in God and I didn't acknowledge God's role in my life.
It's
So
really
true.
cool. So I wrap up for my final question, Diana, and we really are grateful for all your insights today and all you've overcome. Is you're John Maxwell certified. I'm a big John Maxwell proponent. I've read many of his books, listened to a lot of his audio programs over the years. One of the top leaders in the world for sure. So I'd like to My final question, two-part, would be first, can you zero in on one really main thing you learned from going through the certification? And then a story of how you've helped either an organization or a team from what you've learned to help them improve and be a better team.
I think I was a John Maxwell fan long before I joined the team. I would buy his VHS series, so that dates me, right? Some people
I know
listening,
exactly what you're
may not even know what that
saying.
means, right? But when the first time I was at the Maxwell Leadership Conference in Orlando, one of the lesson that stuck with me the most was he stood up there and talked about speaking in front of crowds or doing a workshop. And he said, it's not about you. And the minute we remember, right, that it's not about us, it's about how I add value to the audience, your fears go away, right, of the public speaking or that type of thing, because it's not about you. It's about the people I'm here to serve. And because 15, 20 years ago, I hated to talk in front of people, right? Because it was fear, right? But now it's not about me. So that's probably my top lesson from being in front of John and hearing him. In terms of a team and an application lesson, I think one of my favorite audiences is to get to talk to nurses or medical staff because they have played a big role in my life, how I'm actually here today. And in May of 2025, I got to spend 2 days and do 8 different sessions with nurses and teams. And a big part of my patient story weaving into them is to remember their why and why they pick to do what they do and to don't lose sight of it, because we're gonna lose sight of it when there's a grumpy patient or there's new rules or there's new change. And don't ever forget like your why and why you're choosing to do what you do. And may I be an example, right, of if my story is a reminder for you on why you do what you do, then you claim that. And so I just love to go back and visit them and they're like, Diana, that stuck with us, right? Remember our why, because it helps us to keep going and to work together to achieve good things.
Very powerful. And I got to ask you one more thing, because when you talk about unique qualifications, you certainly have a unique qualification, and some of the things that you've overcome, especially your cancer. Talk about someone though who may not feel like they're uniquely qualified. I don't have anything. I haven't overcome anything like Diana has. How can we find what makes us uniquely qualified to add value to other people?
It's a great question. I think I wouldn't even, when I look back through, yes, I have this unique look about me and cancer about me, or cancer or different things like that. But everybody has some type of adversity or story to tell that's a little bit unique, that when they go back and look through and reflect on the lessons they've learned, the door will be there for who they can help and they can connect to. I will have people come up to me after I had a chance to talk and they will go, I thought because I stutter that I couldn't help people, but then you helped me to go, oh, but there's a whole bunch of people that stutter that don't feel like they can make a difference, and I can show them that they can. Or I'm on the autism spectrum and I didn't think I could do X, but then you've helped me think, oh, there's people just like me that need inspired and don't think they can do it. And it could be overcoming a death, overcoming a disability. There's all kinds of things. And it's just thinking through what you've overcome or what you're fighting to overcome, right? That may be the opportunity for you to uniquely add value to others. And I think the other piece, and I'm sorry, I'm like, you're sparking things for me. Many times I know I've looked at it and said, but if I just help that one person, does it matter? And one matters. Jesus left the 99 to go for one. So sometimes we want to think about our impact of who we uniquely add value to. It's got to be hundreds or millions. It doesn't have to be. One matters.
And there might be just one person checking this out. And that's, if there was, I know I don't want to speak for you, Diana, but I know that would be worth it. And that's so powerful. And then it's also not just about overcoming. We talk about overcoming obstacles, and that's certainly important. But how about living in the midst of them too, Diana, because I'm sure our audience is curious. You're currently fighting this cancer, right? And you're currently in the battle. What's the next step for you, and how will you continue to keep fighting?
The next step for me medically. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, so right now, I think anybody that's had cancer, you probably can relate. It's not like it's a journey. It doesn't just like end. And so I have MRIs every 3 months just to check in and see if it's spread anywhere new or where I'm at. I'm undergoing like a biotherapy treatment, which is hard to find. It's hard to get insurance approval for because when you have a rare form of cancer, it's not a matter of just fighting cancer. You also get to fight insurance companies or try to ask for compassionate care, like all those different things, right? You still keep going. And I think so the journey doesn't end, but I'm reminded daily, right? My mindset, my approach, right? I could be grumpy and I could be mean, but that I want every person I talk to is an opportunity to help somebody or to engage. And so, no matter how frustrating it may be to go through medical red tape or whatever it may be, it is still an opportunity for me to shine through my scars. And I'm continuing to work on the medical treatments, but I also, and I encourage everybody on this, your spiritual health and your mental health is just as important in fighting, right? Whether it's a disease or living well, is just as important. Your physical health, like I am probably in better shape physically than I was when I played basketball in college in terms of
Wow.
Wow.
my strength and my physical strength. And so I think that's an important part to remember too. There's always something that we can fight for, that we
Right.
can, I can fight for my spiritual health and I can fight for my physical health. I may have red tape to go through in the medical space, but there's still things I can fight for.
Yeah.
Yeah, and shine through your scars. That's such a powerful statement. And Diana, I believe with your positivity and your mindset, you can overcome any battle that is placed in front of you. My prayers for you because you are a warrior, and definitely we look forward to have you in our podcast again and share the journey. I lost two of my closest friend to cancer, and one of the thing that I observed that the mindset, they surrendered, and I think that is what we shouldn't do. Even if I translate the cancer story into the world today, we are all trying to find hope and positivity. It's all the chaos that is going on, both in my country and also in USA is also my country. And whenever I'm talking to people, are saying that what are the world are we living in? This is not the world we recognize anymore. But I think some positivity. What I want you to share, just give us a little bit of hope of how people are going to deal with all these uncertainty, chaos, all this restlessness that is going around the world. What message would you give to them if they're listening to you?
Yeah. I think all that exists out there, and has existed years ago too. If you go back to Bible times, there's always chaos, right, in the world. There always is. And a lot of it is well beyond my control, right? If I go back to
Mm,
7 habits of highly effective people,
right.
it's well beyond my control. So if I focus on that, I am well outside of my center of influence. And so
Mm,
I would encourage them to just take it back down to what I can influence. Where can I bring hope? Where can I choose joy? Where can I make a positive difference? Focus there because that's where you can influence.
right.
And
Right.
look for ways to serve because
Mm,
that's another area that you can, when you're getting caught up in the chaos and what could happen and all of that, we miss the opportunity to serve and just go help somebody. I will tell you, you'll feel tremendously better if you just go help
mm,
somebody and
right.
shift your focus away from the chaos.
Yeah.
But Diana,
Thank you.
and I know John will wrap up, but one of the quotes I share sometimes by presentation by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was, we can all be great because service leads to greatness, and we're all capable of serving. And so you're
Amen.
very well said. So John, you want to wrap up with where people can reach out to Diana?
Yeah, we got to also figure out where we can get the book too. So two parts
Yeah.
for you, Diana. Where can we get the book and learn about our unique qualifications? And then is there any way to contact you and continue to follow your work?
Yes, so the book is on Amazon, so that's a easiest place to go find it. There's a nice picture of it. It's got the beach and the sunrise on the front. I am available on LinkedIn, love to connect with people there, as well as my website, which is grituiuq.com. And you can learn more about my book and my story there on both LinkedIn and my website.
And the links down there in the show notes. Diana Fritz, thank you so much for your time today. And thank you for inspiring our audience to reach their leadership capability and to find what makes them uniquely qualified.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be here.